All right, so time dependent. I'm going to go through the three candy shop exercises and talk a little bit about my thought process on these. So let's fire away. All right, so this first one, item and sale combiner. So I clone this puppy down. Oops. If I clone this puppy down. By the way, I don't know who, it was probably Chris, whoever started the like exploding dogs meme. I was like, couldn't breathe laughing at those. Those are so good.
No idea where those came from. No freaking
They're
idea.
so good.
I was cracking up. I was like, Matt, how do you find all of these? So many
Yeah, I
exploding
was gonna say
dogs.
that's modest, Matt.
Uh,
Exploding dogs are my go-to, unfortunately.
yeah, they were inspired. I'm impressed. All right, so I've got this guy up. I'm going to set up two terminals here, one to run the tests and one to just do the editing. Oh, come on, man.
Kyle, real quick, did you start the recording?
Yes, I did.
Oh, normally it warns me.
No, I don't do those through Zoom because I can't actually access those recordings. That's all Pluralsight stuff. So this is my recording. Cool. So, well, I guess I'm technically committing a felony. Although, whatever, I just let you know. Feel free to drop if you don't want to be on a recording. All right. So I do that, and it goes, hey, what's Mocha? I go, oh, that's right. I need to install them. And really, like, whenever you're working through a project like this, running the test should be the first thing that you do. Because if, like, you don't get anything happening here, like, solve that problem before you do much else. But, all right. Then I'm going to open up the instructions and this exercise file. Write a function called getItemById. So I'm going to write a function called getItemById. And like, this is exactly how I would do this. Like, that small. I want the feedback loop to be that little. Doesn't even need to be the entire sentence. This is me thinking along with the instructions. So write a function called getItemById that takes a list of items and an item ID. So items, item ID, and returns a matching object. Okay? So that's probably going to be something like go through all of the items and for each item, find the one that has an ID that matches the item ID. Cool. So if I test that, it's still not working. It's because it's not a function. It's because it's not a function. That's how I'm getting it out of this file. So I run it again, and I have a passing test. Cool. So next one, write a function called buildTransactions that takes a list of sales and a list of items and returns the sales with the correct items appended to each transaction. So that's a mouthful. Write a function called buildTransactions. I can do that much. Function buildTransactions. And I've already forgotten what it takes in. It takes a list of sales and a list of items. Sales, items. And returns the sales with the correct items appended to each transaction. So since it's returning the sales, I know that it's going to be some kind of map over the sales. I don't know what I have to do in this side of this transformation, but my Spidey sense tells me, like, that's what that part of the instructions was saying to do. Returns the list of sales. If it was saying returns the items with something done, then I'm probably going to be mapping over the items. So that's why I picked sales. And it needs the correct items appended to the transaction. Well, what does that mean? So looks like this is a transaction. Is there more to this? For example, given the list of sales and list of items, you should return, because it gave me that example up there. That's what the return value should look like. So my list of items kind of looks like this. My list of sales kind of looks like this. So that's giving me an item ID. So I'm probably going to need something with the item ID of that sale. And then I need to append that to whatever the transaction is. So I'm imagining I can probably use this thing right here to get that. So that might be like item is sale dot, sorry, get item by ID. And I can just give it that items thing that I have, and whatever the item ID is, that should give me an item. And then the thing I'm trying to return looks like this. So I think I might need like an ID stripped out of that. Well, I don't know. I'll see what the test says, because that's like part of the feedback loop for this. So what if I just return whatever was already in the sale and then whatever's in the item? Let's see what the test says. It says it's not a function. Well, that's fixable. Cool. So I'm keeping an ID in there. It doesn't want me to keep the ID. So that's how you read that. The white stuff is stuff that is the same in what's expected and the same as what's in actual. Those are the same thing. Something that's green was expected, not received. Something that's in red was actually gotten, but not expected. So I need to get rid of those IDs somehow. So like the easiest way to do that would be to do delete. That's one of our operators, item.id. And does that get it to pass? Now I have a passing test. Before I move on, let's see if I can make that code a little bit cleaner. So like, for example, one of the goals was to do this all in one statement. So that's a statement, that's a statement, that's a statement. How do I do this where I only get the last statement? Well, if item is the same as this, well, then I should be able to take that and just put it in place of item. And now I can see whether or not the thing that I did is still working. Although, oops, now I don't have an item anymore. Okay, so that's tricky. So let's see, what am I going to do there? I could turn like getting rid of this ID into a function. That's a pretty easy hit. This is the thing that always throws people off about this. You can make your own functions. Like you should, little functions that help you. So this could be something like drop ID, and it takes in any object, deletes whatever that object's ID property is, and then returns the object. So maybe I take this ID and also call drop ID on it. Let's see what that does. Item is not defined. That's because, oh, it's because I don't need that anymore. Cool, I got 2 passing tests now. And this is all one statement. But note, I didn't start there. Like, I wrote the stupid thing. I have 780 times more experience than you. And like, that was too big of a problem to like just keep in your head. Break it down, get it working, then make it good. Use the tests as feedback for that. All right, so then this last one. Write a function called get sales by item description. Done. I'm going to go ahead and comment it out because I keep forgetting to do that. That takes a full list of full transactions and an item description and returns any matching sales. For example, if you give it the list of transactions and the string dark socket countries, you should return that. get sales by item description. So that is transactions and item description. Transactions, item description. So what does a transaction look like? Okay, so that was like the thing that I just did. A target transaction, it's showing really, I'm looking for anything that I guess matches that description. So maybe return every transaction. So that's a filter transaction, or the transaction dot description is the item description. Maybe?
And Kyle, before you run that, I think
Oops.
the function name in module export is different than
Yeah, you're
the,
totally right.
function.
So here's how I picked up on that. See how this is blue and these other ones are green? So in my text editor, blue means that I've defined something that isn't being used anywhere. See, it's even giving me that little warning. So that's how I know that those things are not quite right. So let's see what the instructions were saying. This was called get sales by item description. Yeah, that's a problem. So, but that's what I was supposed to call it. All right, yeah, I'm going to change that. We'll do get transaction by item description. And I got 3 passing tests. So that's the thought process for this first one. Ask me some questions about it.
So where you have the dot 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 sales, you're just spreading
Correct.
that part of it, right? Okay.
So yeah, this is returning an array, returning an object. And so I can spread the existing object into that, and it's just like copying it, basically. I've seen a lot of you using object.assign. Spreading like replaces object.assign. Object.assign, there's no good reason to use that one anymore. Spreading objects was added after object.assign and is like a way cleaner syntax for that. Cool. Let's take a look at the...
On line 15, we have the function callback here.
Yeah.
Is one of your arguments doing a dot method in this? Is that what we're all seeing there?
No, so let me reformat this and it might be a little more clear. Drop ID takes one argument. It's just some object. And it doesn't know that it's a sale or an item, or it doesn't matter actually. Any object, all it does is delete its ID and return it. So that takes that one object. That's the one object right there. Because get item by ID returns, like evaluates to an object. That expression is exactly the same as whatever that object ends up being. So that's why I can pass it in that way. And then if I tighten that up, I get that.
So that sale.item ID, you can't normally push that kind of argument in, or can you?
Oh no, I totally can, because it's an expression. So this object here, I don't need to do something like ID equals sale.id first. Those are the same thing, or item ID, I guess. I don't need to save it first. It's an expression, so I can use it anywhere that's expecting a number. That's why I've been harping on y'all about expressions so much. They're like one of the most powerful tools we have for writing concise code. Other questions? All right, let's look at the second one. Sales analysis. All right. So I'm going to back out of this. I'm going to clone this one down. I'm going to npm install. And then fire up some tests. Get total item sales is not defined. I also noticed that there are a few of you that were just autopiloting over these errors. That's the computer trying to talk to you. That's all we need to know about why this isn't working right now. Get total item sales is not defined. Well, is that true? What do you know it is? So I could comment these out probably and get the error to go away. All right, now it's at least the test framework telling me that that's not working rather than node. Cool, let's take a look at the instructions. Write a function called getTotalItemSales. It is so ordered. Cool, very nice. Undefined is not 3. Okay. That takes in a list of sales and an item ID. So that's going to be sales item ID. Returns the total number of sales for that item. For example, if you give it the sales list and give it the ID of 3, you should return 5. So, I see. So we're going to go through this list of sales, and we're trying to get like that and that out. So we can actually sanity check too. If I just do that. All right, cool. At least like it was able to see that like I got that far. Awesome. So I want to take a list of sales, and was it an item ID? Yeah. I want to get every sale that has that item ID. So that's a filter. I want to turn 5 things into 3 things. This object and this object. So that's going to be like sales.filter sale.item ID equals item ID. If I return that, it's not going to be right, but it should give me 2 transactions back. Yeah, there we go. And so I want that to be 3, so I need to add those quantities together. So that's a super good use case for reduce. So if I reduce that and just do a sum on whatever those things are, so it's going to be the sum and the sale. And so I want to return the sum plus the sale dot the quantity, I think. And I want to initialize it to 0. So if I do that, hey, I got a passing test. So if I clean up the formatting on that a little bit, it sort of looks like that. I might even go a step further and refactor that out where maybe it's something. Oh, never mind. I'm not going to show you that. That's going to blow your fucking brains out. I might try to extract these functions out into their own functions, but that's sort of what we're looking for. Just give me these kinds of sales and then some of them together. That's what it's asking for there. And then write a function called add total sales to items. Add total sales to items. While I'm at it. That takes a list of sales and a list of items. Sales items. And returns the list of items with the total number of sales appended. For example, if you give it the list of sales and the list of items, you should return that. The total number of sales appended. Okay, I see. So this is, if they're giving me 3 items, Then I want to bring back 3 items, but they're all a little bit different. They all have that quantity appended. So that's going to be like an items.map of some kind. So if I have the item, then I also have that item's ID. I get it there. And then my previous function gives me the thing that I want. So I can pass the sales through to that and then give it its item ID. So I could say that this should be whatever item is. And also it should have a quantity field that takes, it's like get total item sales. Takes in the sales and I give it like item.id. Let's see if that works. Cool, I got 2 passing tests. And then the last one is write a function called add total value to items. Add total value to items. Oops, and uncomment that. And returns the list of, did I give it the arguments yet? No. That takes in a list of sales and a list of items. Sales and items. And returns the list of items with the quantity sold for each. So I'm going to be returning some kind of items transformation with the quantity sold for each and the total value of the items sold. Okay, so there's like a total value thing that also gets added here. Oh, but I also need this. So maybe I don't want to map over items. What I want to do first is do add total sales to items. And then that takes in the sales and the items. And that's going to evaluate to whatever my items are with that property added. So like that's a good step 1. And then here's another thing that I didn't see a lot of folks pick up on. Is that you can, I was like, what do I even have right now? What's happening in here? You can still console log and then see that in your test runs. So if I do that, all right, I've got undefined coming back there. All right, so that's undefined, undefined, and undefined coming back. All right, well, that's a problem. Oh, maybe it's, if I do that. Okay, cool. Now it's just missing the total value. And there's my logs. So I'm seeing these things right here. These 3 objects, each of which needs the total value. Well, total value is the price times the quantity. Well, that's easy enough. Like, that's a small problem, right? That's what we're trying to do, is just make smaller and smaller problems. So this could be something like return whatever items currently are, as well as this total value property. You could even sanity check a little bit by just hard coding something in there and seeing what happens if we return it, or if we run that test. Awesome. The total value is wrong, but like the value got to the right place. So then this could be something like, that's not items. Those are all item. Item dot quantity times item dot, what was it, price? Yeah, price. All right, let's see what that does. Oh, zoinks! So we have a floating point error. Anybody find out how we're going to get around that?
Dot two fixed and parentheses 2.
Beautiful. So I can wrap that whole expression and do 2 fixed 2. Takes care of the rounding for me. Beautiful. Cool. And then I got passing tests. Questions about that? Remember, I have 780 times more experience than you, and I wrote this assignment. Keep that in mind.
Hey, Kyle, is there any time, this is probably just multiple syntax errors and us getting lost in them, but I wanted to clarify, at any point inside that last return value you have where you're using the dot notation to point to key attributes and stuff, you can always do that inside of a return statement. Is there any time where you can't do that, use a dot notation?
The time where you can't use a dot is if I don't know what the name of this property is ahead of time, so maybe that gets passed into me or something also. So I might have a thing that's like property name equals quantity. And it could be any number of other things. And so that's when you use the bracket notation. That's the only purpose of that, by the way.
Okay.
Is if that's dynamic, then that needs to use brackets. Otherwise, no, there's no restrictions on that. Because it's an expression. So it evaluates. Item.quantity evaluates to some number. And so that may as well be you just typing that number out. All right, cool. I'm going to skip the third one for now. I can do it on Monday or something if you want, but I do want to make sure we get feelings in today, and it's been a long week for all of us. So any last questions about the approach of doing these problems? Cool. All right, we're looking at Candy Shop number 3, which is Transaction Transformer. So let's start working it. So I'm going to clone this guy down. And let's start a new session here, set up some tests. Oh, probably need to install. By the way, that I command is short for install. You can use either one. So if you want to really seem like you're hip to NPM stuff, NPM I instead of NPM install. Cool. And then if I test it, awesome. Some failing tests. And if I want to get those, let's do this first one. So Candy Shop, Candy Sales to object, and comment out these other two. All right, how you like me now? All right, we got some failing tests. Undefined should loosely deep equal dark chocolate crunchies. You know, something that I'll do sometimes also is just hard code the response to start, just so I can see the test pass. It helps verify that like stuff flows through the function correctly. So you can do like something like that. Item dark chocolate country, item dark chocolate crunchies, price $4.39, quantity 1. So now if I run the tests, awesome. And then there was some like second one that didn't come through. But data is coming through the system okay. All right, instructions. Write a function called candy sales to object, done, that takes an array of single candy sales and converts it to a candy sales object. Single candy sales. Okay, that's the only thing it takes in. Candy sales object is what it returns. So I'm just going to call this sales then. And for example, given the array, oh, I see. This is an interesting kind of thing. We haven't talked about these yet. This is called a tuple. So this is an alternative to an object. So they work like this. So that's the object. You could also do that as dark chocolate crunchies 439.1. So that is that data as a tuple. That's that data as an object. A tuple is an array where the positions in the array are significant. So like rather than having this label item, we just have to know that it's index 0. Or no, rather than knowing that this is the price, we just have to know that it's in index position 1. So I think that there's some like performance advantages to tuples over objects, but in general, like you'll see these out in the wild. I think it's kind of a bad data pattern, and they're more common in TypeScript. And I'm going to encourage you to not use them because they're fucking hard to read and really easy to make mistakes with. Because you can think that you pulled the name out with like sales tuple at 0, and then have like accidentally switched this to something like 1, and now you're actually getting the price, but there's no way to tell that. So I don't really like that pattern. All right, so we need to convert sales to this. So the easiest way to do that is probably to just swap that out for like sales at 0, sales at 1, and sales at 2.
I think this is the one where you have to force the string to be a number for price.
Probably so. Let's see what the test framework says. Hey, it passed. So, but I think you're right where it's giving me this as
Yeah, you've got a note down on 160 something that says note the data type on the price.
Cool. In that case, let's make sure it gets coerced. Okay, so that test is passing now. I think we can make this code better though. Like, first of all, we don't need either of these. But even that, I think, can be improved on. So you can destructure objects also. So if I put the array destructuring stuff up here, I could make this item price quantity, and then use object shorthand, where like anytime you're doing this, you actually don't need the second part. There's a JavaScript shorthand for that. It's just that. That means the same thing as item is item. So anytime you're assigning something to a variable that's named the same as the key, you just leave them both off. So we could do item price quantity. Still passing? Still passing. And then since that one has a coercion in it, here's the other thing I like about this. I'm coercing that that price, and that makes it stand out from the things that I'm not modifying at all. I'm going to keep coming back to this idea that code is for people, not computers. Like, things that are weird should stand out. That's why I made that thing about comments. Whereas, like, a comment shouldn't be normal. A comment should be weird. You should see a comment and go, well, hang on, what's happening here? It's like a road sign. If you have a road sign that says, like, this sign means nothing, you're like, well, why'd you put it there? You want it to stand out. All right, so we got a passing test. Questions about anything I just did? All right. Next one. Write a function called salesDayToObject. Done. That takes in a date and a day of sales, which looks like that apparently. So we'll call that sales day. And returns an object formatted like the following. Feel free to reuse your function from the previous example. So it's looking for something kind of like that, apparently. All right, let's see the test. All right, format's correct. Let's see if we can't make it real. So I need to return an object. That much is sure. And all right, so like I'm just looking for what kinds of things can I pull out of this? So like this date, that's kind of a gimme. So how about I start there? So I can do date is date, or as we just learned, I can use a shorthand. All right, so that should get me that far. And then the sales is an array. And an array of what? So I have the sales day object. What do those look like? All right, so that object has keys that are dates. Hey, wait a minute, I have a date. And then those dates are arrays of tuples. Well, hey, I could take each of those tuples and use the thing that I had before. And I can get this array by looking up sales day at date or whatever. So if I do like sales day at date, that should give me that array of tuples, like starting from here to there. And then for each one of those, I need to turn those into an object. I've got a function for that. So I could do map candy sales to object. Oops, sales day. That's probably it. Hey, passing. Cool. Questions about that one?
Yeah, I have one quick question. So we called it sales day in the top, but then we equated it. So then we just equated sales day, our variable, to sales, the value, and the return.
So backwards. So you'd say, I'm setting this sales key to whatever this expression evaluates to. So then evaluating that expression, go left to right. Sales day at date, we're using our bracket notation because sales day is an object. And we're saying, give me whatever the value of that date is. And so if that looks like this, it's going to find a match for that key, and then the value of that is this array.
Okay.
And it's an array of arrays, which is a little weird. But one step at a time, that's going to give me an array. Every one of the things in that array, I need to transform. So I map it. And then the thing that I want to do to each of those is turn that tuple into an object. So that's
Okay.
like a condensed syntax, but it's the same as doing like sales tuple. That's the same thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? You're welcome. All right. Last one. All sales to array. So I write a function, all sales to array. That takes the complete array formatted response and returns a complete array of objects. So that's like sales dates, I think. This would be like sales dates. And returns the complete array of objects. Feel free to reuse your function. All right. What if I just return sales dates? What does that look like? So I run the test. Okay, so the biggest thing that I note right away is that I'm starting with an object and I need to end with an array. Oh man, I was savage with this. So I have this array or this object, and like let's see if we can find like some things to kind of map across. So like this inner thing there, we've got a function for that. We can do the tuple transformation. That's pretty easy. And that's what the last problem was. And then each of these is a date. How does that map to the thing? All right, so it ends up going here. All right, so if we have one of these, we should have everything else we need written already. So then we need to be able to get one of those. So we could pull out like a particular a key value pair in that. And my first thought is that this might be a good use for object.entries. Let's take a look. So what object.entries does, it's a good good utility for turning an object into an array. So this should give us tuples, believe it or not, of keys and values for each of those. So what if I just look at that for a sec? Oh man, that got pretty close right away. Yeah, I'm having a hard time seeing that, so I'm gonna log it instead. All right, so that gave me an array, and these are the tuples. First one's is the date. Second one is the sales. Or maybe I'm overthinking this. Let's take a look at what. So what this thing needs is a date. If I take like each of these entries and try to get like dates. No, I got it. So if I take the entries and map over them, so I have an array of those tuples now. So we'll call that like day tuple. And the thing that I need to do, so like day tuple is going to have the date, which is the first index, or the 0 index, and the sales day, which is the first index. Hey, those are the two things that I need, right? So what if I do sales day to object, date sales day, and return that? I wonder if that does it. Cannot read property map of undefined. Well, why is that undefined? So let's take a look at it. Sure don't look undefined to me. I wonder, oh, something else is throwing that. So that's getting thrown. So remember, the arrays, or the errors, they're for us. Computer doesn't give a shit about this. It's trying to help us. If we look at that cannot read property map of undefined, at sales day to object, exercise.js, line 12, column 27 is how you read that. So line 12 is up here. It's saying that that map was undefined. So something in there was not coming back okay. So let's take a look at what I'm putting in here. Date, sales day. Okay, so there's a date and there's a sales day. Is that? Is it? Maybe I need to turn those into objects first? No, that's happening in the... That's looking for the sales tuples. Maybe it's that if we look back at the... at this, yeah, it wants those like back in an object. So, and right now it's an array. All right, so what if that's like, I make an object, sales day object is the date, and that's equal to maybe something like that. Wonder if that does it. Let's see. Hey, passing. Okay. So let's clean this up a little bit, and then we can talk about it. Because yeah, that's wild. Told you it was hard. All right, so if I have entries here and entries there, then that means I can combine that. Object.entries sales dates. All right, am I still passing? I'm still passing. Okay. And then inside this, I can do that same destructuring thing with the array. If I say that index 0 is date and that's day tuple, I can at least like, the sales tuple something. What is that? Sales. No. I'm gonna call it sales date. And we'll call that cool. Am I still passing? Still passing. And then sales day needs to come in there. Okay, there's all green with only one statement per thing. Any other areas of improvement on this? Since I'm chaining these, probably makes more sense to format them like that, like that. And I'll bet I can implicitly return that like this. Is that better? I don't know that that's better. Another trick you can do with implicit returns is you can force something to implicitly return by giving it parentheses like this. Now you still don't need the return keyword or the braces. I'm missing syntax somewhere though. That's good. That's good. Why is it?
Looks like you have two parenthesis opens right after map, but no closing.
Oh, good call. There it is. Nope, I need that there, and then I need this one here and here. I don't know why it won't let me implicitly return that. Maybe
looks like you need another closing parentheses.
To close what?
The dot map.
Oh, good call. That is it. Yep. Good catch. Hey, look who can read close now. Hell yeah. All right, and we're still green. That is some careful syntax watching. I'm impressed. Cool. I'd call this pretty good code. Ask me some questions about it.
Would you be able to go over the error you got with the date and the way that you fixed it?
That one where it was like, line 12 is whatever the fuck?
Yeah.
Sure. So, let's do this. I'm going to commit this so we can get back to it if we need to. Get add tests passing. And all right, so then I'm gonna go back. Okay, I think it was just this. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so the error says cannot read property map of undefined. So it's trying to call map on something that's undefined. Awesome. My first thought was, what do you mean? How could entries be undefined? Like, especially since undefined isn't what comes back from entries, even if entry screws up. It's an array usually. So I was like, I was very confused about that. And then you saw me try to log entries. And I said, wait a minute. That's not the only place in this file where map is being used. So then it tries to tell you in order, like, what broke. So the first thing is the specific thing that broke. The next thing is what called that. The next thing is what called that. The next thing is what called that. So this is called a stack trace. What we really care about is this one right here. And this is saying the sales day to object function, which is in the file exercise.js at line 12 on column 27. So if we look at line 12, column 27, sales data object, line 12. Oh, I don't keep track of columns anymore. 27 over. Right there is where the error occurred. So that means that evaluated to undefined. Now that's a little bit more reasonable. And so then the next thing I was thinking was, okay, so I am trying to look up the whatever that date variable is. I'm trying to look up that key on the sales day object, and then looking at what was coming back. It wasn't an object, it was an array still. So it's like, oh, I need to put this into an object. And that's when I did the next stuff.
Okay, so it's because it was an array that you needed to put into an object, and then that's what the next steps was.
Bingo.
Simply. Okay.
Because I was looking up February 20 or March 28th on an object, but it wasn't an object, it was an array. I was looking for the March 28th index of an array, and it was like, yeah, buddy, that's undefined, and you can't map over undefined. Good question. What else? Why won't it let me have my thing? Get checkout master and get checkout. Exercise JS. There we go. Hey, that was a good one. Other questions about this? Cool. Told you it was hard, but that's how I would approach that. All right, let's. I'm gonna stop the one video and start. No. Yeah, sure. I'll start another one.